Preet Kaur.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. This bill is yet another power grab by a government intent on riding roughshod over Parliament and which views scrutiny as something to fear rather than a fundamental resource of democracy. Parliamentary scrutiny is there to enable a better, more effective, evidence-led approach, but it requires the appropriate powers to do this. This bill does not allow Parliament to analyse, query and question the government. Instead, by giving the government sweeping powers to impose the immigration system they set out in their white paper, or indeed any other whim that may take their fancy, we do not know what Home Office ministers will do. And as parliamentarians, we will be unable to challenge them when they do. Having said that, Mr Deputy Speaker, we can have a good guess. Under the stewardship of a Prime Minister more motivated by ideology than facts, this government has decided to stick with arbitrary targets and look to appease unjustified and unsubstantiated anti-migrant sentiment. For members across the House, but in particular on those benches opposite, I would like to outline a few key findings from the government-commissioned Migration Advisory Committee report, EEA, Migration in the UK. This report found no evidence that migration reduced wages, employment opportunities or training opportunities for UK-born citizens. Furthermore, it included strong evidence that EEA migrants have a positive impact on productivity, they pay more in taxes than they receive in welfare benefits and consume in public services, and they make a larger contribution both in terms of money and work to the NHS than they receive in health services. And as it stands, EEA nationals who want to come to the UK will be faced with our existing, creaking and failing immigration system, which is simply not fit for purpose. We know the damage this government's hostile environment has had on individuals and families around the country, and this bill pushes more people into this unjust position.
Will she give way?
I will.
Is she aware of reports that have in fact shown that on average migrants contribute 35% more in tax than they consume in public services? So won't these restrictions mean there'll be higher tax and lower services for the rest of us?
I thank my honourable friend for that, for the point he's made, and absolutely contributing to my previous statement. This bill removes the rights of individuals and families without guaranteeing sufficient rights be put in their place. And if the Minister and this government are serious about protecting the rights of people, will they put this into legislation? I'd like to raise a few other concerns, and the first is on the proposed £30,000 minimum salary threshold, which will also apply to migrants from the EU 27. And according to the annual survey of House and Earnings 2018, average earnings for a full-time male in the West Midlands is £30,231, so just over the threshold. Meanwhile, the average earnings for a full-time woman is £24,030. What assessment has the Secretary of State made of the inequities of a policy that would disproportionately impact women and shut them out of the possibility of coming into this country? And will he commit to conducting a comprehensive gender impact assessment of all policies contained within the White Paper? With these plans for a salary threshold, my constituents are concerned that we will see staff shortages in our NHS and care sector worsen.
Will she give that way on that point?
I will.
I thank my honourable friend for giving way. My local hospital in Croydon struggles now to recruit nurses. We struggle to recruit social care workers. The arbitrary £30,000 cut-off has no correlation to the skills that we actually need in our economy. And does she agree with me that this bill will get us nowhere and really should go back to the drawing board?
I thank my honourable friend for that contribution, and she makes an excellent point, and one which I'm just about to further reiterate on. So having staff shortages in our NHS and care sector, it will leave our loved ones waiting longer in hospital corridors to see a nurse. We must ensure we have the nurses and the care workers, as my honourable friend has just pointed, and that's why we must ensure our NHS and care sector has the people it needs with the right level of skills, and that's why I cannot support this bill at second reading. Does the Secretary of State agree with me that equating pay and skill undermines the desire for an immigration system? And I quote from the Prime Minister's forward to the December White Paper, where she says that welcomes talent, hard work and the skills we need. My second concern that I want to raise is about indefinite detention. As it stands, there are no limits on the amount of time a person can be held in immigration detention in the United Kingdom. And anyone who's met with those who have faced indefinite detentions will know the pain and harm it causes. And with this bill potentially expanding the number of EEA nationals liable for detention, will the government listen to the range of voices asking for an end to indefinite detention? And finally, on the social security element of the bill and of the immigration white paper, with the white paper proposing a more restrictive system for EU citizens' entitlements, including longer waiting times before entitlement, what guarantees to EU citizens will the Secretary of State give to protect them? And with the EU likely to reciprocate any new restrictions on social security entitlement, what does he say to the more than 1 million UK citizens living in the EU who will have to face confines or even become ineligible? Mr Deputy Speaker, in this House, we have a tendency to view issues as being intrinsically good or bad. So I'd like to call on members across the whole House to reflect on a vital section of the MAC report, which says the impacts of migration often depend on other government policies and should not be seen in isolation from the wider context. So I hope the government heeds this advice. Thank you.